All right, there we go. All right, gentlemen. Hey, this is technology, gentlemen. Technology works in a strange way. I always will say you got to go back and forth and back, over and over again, and then you see where you can lose or win. All right, again, I want to welcome everybody tonight to Fatherhood Talks. We have an interesting topic tonight. Being King Richard versus being King Kong. We have a powerful discussion that's going to go with this. I'm Ron Christopher Williams. I'm the father of one who just texted me a minute ago, and I'm curious to see what that text is that she texted me. But I'm going to introduce everybody and let the rest of the panel, the fathers that you can see and the fathers that you can't see that are down in the audience, to go ahead and introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with tonight's topic. Welcome to Fatherhood Talks. And before I say that, if you are watching this, please like, share, and subscribe. Hit the little button so you can know when we have Fatherhood Talks. Take it away, gentlemen.
All right, well, I'll kick it off. Good evening, everybody. My name is Lawrence Jordan, father of two. Just feeling very, very grateful this evening. I shared my praise report earlier with the brothers, and just like everyone to know that prayer changes things. Well, more than anything, prayer changes me. So just thankful to be here, brothers, and look forward to the discussion.
All right, good evening, brothers. Brother Johnny Gaspard, father of two, a 23-year-old and 20-year-old. Grateful to be present. Had a very relaxing and non-crazy Memorial Day weekend, so I'm excited about getting this topic going and understanding the difference between the two kings.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. My name is Lionel Lightborn. I'm a father of a tribe of 7. I told you I'm gonna call them a tribe. Anything after 5 becomes a tribe. So I have a tribe of 7, and they range in various numbers, but they're all adults right now. My baby just graduated this month, so everybody's officially adults and getting ready to take care of me. Hopefully I can get the King Richard experience, but either way, it's always a pleasure to be here with you, gentlemen.
Good evening, everybody. Gene Robert Menard, father of 2, 18 years, about to graduate in about 2 days. So I'm excited about that. On to bigger and better things for him, and successfully got him through, I guess, a rough patch when it comes to high school. You know, everyone has that awkward time in high school. So he made it through. I'm excited about that. So yeah.
Awesome, congratulations as well, man. That's not no easy task.
Thank you.
And you continue to break down the stigma we all face with. So absolutely, congratulations.
All right, guys down in the audience.
Donald Jones, divorced and father of 2. I also have a praise report myself. I'll be going to Georgia for emergency custody hearing of my children. So prayerfully, they'll be here with me for full and sole custody. And good evening, gentlemen.
We're excited about that for you, Donald.
Thank you.
I know that probably the 2 J's, they both probably driving, so they probably can't chime in, but they chime in any other time they want to get in, come on in. All right, gentlemen, let's get down to this. So, you know, I know that many people might be right now looking at the flyer and saying, hey, this is King Richard and this is King Kong. And when we looked at putting this topic together, one thing we looked at it and said, hey, what's the difference between King Richard and King Kong? Or is there a difference? And how does that look? And then many times as fathers, we may not even recognize that people may not see the difference between King Richard and King Kong because they don't have context. They have content, but they don't have the context. And I just want, as I told the guy before this, I almost put a picture of just Richard and just a picture of King Kong. And then I said, oh no, that would have been, as I begin to put it, I said, hey boy, if I seen that, I'd be the first person making a fuss about it. So the flyer just got the two movies flyers on there, and as we made our flyer for the night. So let's listen, that's just something to think about. And this is what you have to think about, and I think that is a great example of, thinking about what you put out and what it means to put out and say, this is good. And we didn't want to, make sure we didn't make a, somebody say, well, look at them, what they putting out there. But anyway, this is a disclosure. I want to recognize and say it because that's the honesty of what happened and what's going on. So if somebody even might want to make a comparison, it's two movies we're talking about. The comparison, the characters of the two movies. And so let me say too much more. Let's get into it, guys. What do we say about, can we come up with what we would consider a definition for a King Richard versus what we define a definition of a King Kong?
Go ahead, Lightburn.
Well, to be King Richard will be to be assertive, to be an assertive man, or better yet, to have an assertive approach, or what they call an advocacy approach. So you can either be assertive or an advocate. To be King Kong, you will probably be more aggressive and dogmatic. And so that means you just blow up about everything. You kind of, so one approach different crises or circumstances with a certain level of intelligence, as opposed to the other one approaching more so with what they call instinct. So it's facts over feelings. I mean, you react with your feelings. The other one reacts with the facts. And so King Richard would react with the facts and would think about the facts and think it out first and come to a logical conclusion. Whereas King Kong will go on the feelings and let his instinct take over, and that animal instincts and aggression would go ahead and dominate that circumstance.
Great point. And the major difference between the two is one is looked at as, in some instances, positive, and the other one is definitely looked at as negative, because we all know that even being assertive for us as Black men could be considered aggressive. We're not being aggressive, we're just being assertive and advocates for our family, our children, our situation. Yet it's looked at as aggressive because we are Black men. Whether you are 6 feet, tall, muscular or not, you are looked at as, unfortunately, King Kong when you try or you are attempting to be King Richard, regardless of your articulation, regardless of your demeanor. Oftentimes we are given King Kong rhetoric by the system we deal with when we are King Richard and how we are presenting our manner. So I think that's although I get Lionel explain the difference, the similarities in how we're treated, even though we distinguish the difference, is how society looks at us. So, even in looking at the movie with King Richard, even though he was just being protective and assertive in his children and confident in his children's ability to be who he believed they could be and spoke life into them, which is what we say you should do. The world looked at it as him being cocky, don't know what he's talking about, and being this obnoxious man, when he was simply being assertive in advocating for who he believed his children were ultimately going to be and who they showed the world that they were. So That's a big difference for me while being a similarity.
You know, I'm also going to go on that similarity role, because I think that a lot of times we misunderstand King Kong, because King Kong was taken out of his home element and placed into somewhere where really a society he really didn't belong in.
I hear you, bro.
Right? And so when you look at that similarity, and you look at King Richard, and like you said, like Gaspar was saying, pumping that positivity into those kids, putting them now in an element that they weren't supposed to be a part of. I think that's where the difference shines, in the way that that's handled. I think King Kong had a more aggressive approach because of the unfamiliarity of where he was versus King Richard. I mean, I'm not saying that he knew where he was, but he had the forethought to see where he was going. There was hope for him. There was hope in his eyes, and knowing that the ability, like Gaspar was saying, for the kids to succeed and overcome in an environment in which at every turn they were mocked.
Hey.
Go ahead.
Hey, Gene, you open up Pandora's box now. You see that? Now you're gonna get me to say comparison. What was the factor? Because this is my thing. There's a factor that made King Richard be the way he was, and a lot of it was his children. Whereas King Kong, who was outside of his element, had nothing. The only time, and we know, watch the movie, only time he did calm himself was one time when the little girl was there and he protected the little girl. And so the idea goes to my analogy that I usually make about fathers versus men, and how we operate different. And what makes us really different the most is that we're fathers. We're still men, but we're fathers, and we think about others that are not only responsible for, but also that is responsible to us, to look up to us, to be and act a certain way. So it's a great, hey, I love how this. I hope it's not going too far with people's head yet, but we're gonna go ahead and try to bring it, because that's a great analogy you brought out, Gene. To look at King Kong being out of his element, because King Richard was out of his element, but he had something to advocate for, to change the future. And King Kong may not even know what his future was going to be, nor did he have anybody to, might did a lot of reckless things. And that's a good analogy to think about. Some of us in our community do reckless things because we don't have anything to really live for of a legacy.
But then there was another king who embodied like both of these guys, King Kong and King Richard. And as hard as it is to believe and even accept, Martin Luther King embodied both of these. He was both King Kong and King Richard. If you listen to his statements very well, I think we like to see Martin Luther King as a passive aggressive, but he's not. When you make a statement like, if a man can't find something to die for, he's not fit to live. That's a King Kong statement. That's an instinctive statement. And which means at some point, we may have to be King Kong in certain circumstances. So I don't totally throw King Kong out the door. You understand? Being King Kong, I think, embodies the protective side of me, right? And the protective side of all of us, which may keep people at bay who may want to violate and overstep certain things and boundaries within your circle or your sphere of safety. You understand? So King Kong do exist. And I don't want us to just get it twisted that we're going to disregard King Kong. We just know when to be King Kong and when to be King Richard, and not let anyone dictate that.
Great point.
I think that with King Richard, because of the way that he felt about his kids and about his family in general, King Richard realized that in his own way, he had to become King Kong, because he was going to be against King Kong. During the movie, if you saw, they tried to really just bombard them with different kind of offers, and they tried to buy them off, and that's what they do with our kids, and and with parents as well. And many times you have a child, might be a single mother, whatever the case is, but they come in, listen, I do this for your kid, and I do this for your kid, and they throw a few dollars at them, knowing that they're going to make millions of dollars off of our kids. So sometimes you got to become King Kong. And he just said, no, we don't want that. No, okay, you offer them this. No, we're not going to take that. And realize that. And sometimes in order to defeat King Kong, you got to become King Kong. And I think he did. And I think he did a good job of that.
And I think that, and if you bring that up, Lawrence, there's a part where we got to be very careful as well. When we look at people trying to do things, because there was that scene that you're describing, the man said, did he ask you about it? When he looked to the wife. And I said to myself in that moment, the wife looked as if, and to say he didn't, but she wasn't going to give that away.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it was powerful that she didn't. They talked about it later, and it became some issue. But she could also be, and that we have to remember, we can't put out as fathers, as men, we can't leave our family out to dry. They'll protect us a lot of time, but if they can understand why we're doing things, can't leave them out of the circle of communication. We're gonna say we're gonna go in here and this is what we're gonna do, and don't think at one moment because we lead the house or we lead our families that we should be the only one thinking for our family.
So basically what you're saying is you can't King Kong your household. You got to King Richard your household. King Kong the outside world.
Right, exactly. You're great. Hey, nothing greater than that. You can't King Kong your household. You got a King Kong outside.
I hear that. It's interesting when LJ used that and brought up that point there. That's why when I think of people like a LeBron James, and this is completely off of what we're necessarily focused on, but more so the fact that his mom was a single mom, and the amount of money that he was offered coming right out of high school to sign with different people, and yet he kept putting it off to where the numbers that he signed with Nike and his ultimate deal with Nike was so much like the situation with the girls when they could have signed for $3 million, and then in a couple of years or a couple of months later they got 10 million. When the difference, and oftentimes when it comes to that household, and again you had the father playing a very intricate role in protecting the children. And when I sit down, and I don't know if there was any father figure in LeBron James's life that may have played a role, because we don't hear about any male per se playing a role in helping him through the initial stages of his career. But ultimately, there were some very intelligent choices that we look at where he is now. So I have to believe that there was some man involved in helping guiding him along the way. But when I come back to the King Richard and King Kong analogy, it is so imperative for us to always remember that in being King Richard and King Kong, that they're like Lionel said, everybody said, we embody both of those in us, even in our more understanding age. Because most young men that are 21 to 27, 18, young fathers, they're more King Kong in their attitude and mindset many times in the choices they make. They're more aggressive in why they make the choices. It's not a very thought out choice when they do make the decision, and many times it's because they don't have the guidance as well. But then you begin to live, and things happen and life happens, as we often say. You learn from your experience that being King Kong doesn't oftentimes allow doors to open as easy as being King Richard does, because you can still be assertive yet still come off understanding, where when you are King Kong, nobody can hear you because they're either afraid or they're unwilling to hear, because what you said offends everybody in how you may have said it, not necessarily even what you said. So I just think that although we embody that as men, both sides, we got to understand that a lot of times we're King Kong in our young ages until we learn and experience life and become King Richard, unless, again, we are guided when we are younger to avoid the King Kong choices.
Yeah, you can get that kind of guidance and be able to bounce those kind of ideas off offer the fathers here and the mentors here in the Fatherhood Talks program on Wednesday nights. So that's a shameless plug.
Well,
But I know, but on a serious note, Johnny brought it up, but it is important. I think that we forget, and you even an idea of talking about LeBron, was it somebody? I'm sure there was a man there who had some insight and had something to say. But again, a lot of times our narrative is not going to show that, because they like to show that that men are not there. That there's not an uncle that was there, or there's not maybe a grandfather. There wasn't somebody. Even if the father wasn't there, they don't want to show that there was a man there who was there to kind of help support mother and making some decisions and things that happen. But it's important to know that, because they don't want to show that narrative, also makes us feel like that we don't have that kind of community. And I want to say that we do have that kind of community. We have that kind of community right here in our group. And that this is how we even came to point to bringing this kind of presentation on Tuesday nights, because we were in meeting and saying, hey, this is so good. This is like we have something that almost like when people keep trying to tell you about certain kind of things that they want you to buy into. And you're saying, well, if you want me to buy into it, come, hey, this, you got to get involved. And I know it might seem a little strange, because normally when stuff is good, people don't tell you to come get involved. It's usually they got a thing where once they tell you it's so good, then at the end they say, oh, $19.99. If you buy a prescription of this, and really, I want, that's not what we got. I think that any father who has walked through these doors, or been involved in this group, or in any way for over the 10 to 20 years, let me don't get carried away, right? Like over the almost 10, 11, 12 years that this has been involved, will say they got something to help them become not just a better man, but a better father, or even think about their fatherhood in another way. So, but a lot of people don't get that kind of group to go to, because in a lot of groups, they're going to be dominated in many instances, maybe not by fathers. So if it's not dominated by fathers, the influence of it won't come off like it comes off, I think, when we have our setting. There's no nobody behind the curtain. Who you see is who you get. Let me just say that. Who you see Lionel, you get Lionel. Lionel ain't getting told later on in the meeting, well, you need to push this a little bit. I don't have some boss saying, hey, we need to get this going. We are the men, we are the fathers, and we're sharing what our thoughts and feelings are about this, hopefully to help inspire and normalize this for other fathers. So sounds like another shameless
plug. I just wanted to say real quick, I love that movie, King Richard, and I tell you, one of the reasons that I loved it is because there were several King Kongs in that movie. And I tell you what I mean by that. The first King Kong was, remember, there was a guy that was always messing with his daughter. And he'd come up and he said, man, I want your daughter. I want your daughter. He said, man, you need to leave her alone. And then he'd beat up King Richard. He just beat him up, beat him to the ground. Okay. Until Richard decided that one day he was going to become King Kong and he was going to kill this guy. And he goes up got his gun, and he goes up to kill this guy. Before he could kill him, somebody else come along and kill him. So he was turning into King Kong. But then as well, it takes a King Kong to lift him up, because the next group of guys, black kids that came in, said, listen, man, we see your daughters, we got your back. And it gave him an opportunity to really help it, to do what he needed to do with his daughters with protection, with that Kong on his side, to the point when he brought a white boy in to watch his daughters, and they rolled up on it and said, who this cracker that you pulled up in here? Well, who is this? He said, no, he all right, let him live. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You're gonna have to edit this one. You got to edit this one.
Listen.
We live. We can't.
In America, you have freedom of speech, man. You got to use the words that. Listen, I'm gonna say this.
That's what he said, though.
No, we
It
messing
is,
with
that's
you,
it.
Lawrence. We know, LJ. I'm just saying the movie.
Listen, I mean,
It's over the
again, Lawrence, you
movie.
only repeating what was in the movie. You ain't like
Yeah.
we're just talking about what's in the movie. Yeah. And so I mean, and that's the whole point of it. You gotta be able to have real talk, be able to say what you need to say. Perfect example.
Yeah.
When and let me switch this around and put this in the mix. So I want to go to the King Kong, like the King Kong Denzel.
Oh,
King
Training
Kong
Day.
Training Day, King Kong.
Gotcha.
And do we have those kind of King Kongs out here? And how do we help that kind of King Kong? Because in that point, when Denzel was King Kong, obviously he loved his son, but there was a point in there where it looked like he loved himself a little bit more than he loved his son for a minute, And so, how do we help, and what are we able to do in the reference of when do we know we're not being a Denzel King Kong?
Oh, that's well, I can speak on that because I know that personality, I know that character. When remember I told you it was for me, I can speak for me. The struggle for me was the advocate versus the addict. The addict. So the addict, which means I was addicted to something, be it pride, ego. That's the King Kong in my relationships that may have contributed to me having 4 children from 4 different women. You understand? That's the King Kong that's not reasonable, that's not rational. And because of that, everything was always to one extreme or to another. You can still be King Kong without being violent. Your choices can be King Kong-ish. You understand? You're willing to quit, break down, separate, or divorce, or just kill unity by any means necessary, simply because you got a certain pride, ego, or you just can't have your way. And so with that, I understand that Denzel narrative of that pride and that ego to solidify my manhood or me being a man. And so, but again, it's a certain addiction, and it doesn't always have to be drugs. Because people think that, oh, you can be, it just has to be drugs or alcohol. I'm like, no, anything that gives you a type of high. And so winning can give you a high. Winning an argument can give you a high. Having your way can give you a high. And so with that particular addiction, if we don't get rid of that addiction to pride, that addiction to ego, that addiction to never having to say, I'm sorry, then you're going to always be that type of King Kong that Denzel spoke about, that was always dominating the relationship. But on the flip side of that, never really thinking that you can ever get cheated on, while getting cheated on all the while because a woman going to find peace somewhere else. I don't care how tough you are. And so I understand those narratives and the dynamics of that, because I've also, known some women who may have been married to the King Kong that I might have, you understand? So I understand the narrative on both, and where I might have been the corporate of trying to be that Denzel King Kong, and always also been victimized by it because I was too narrow-minded to really see the opposite sex as my equal, or even appreciate that.
Anybody else think about that?
I agree with what Lionel was saying. I think that taking it a little further, when you come to the addiction that you were talking about, I think it was his addiction to being in power, his addiction to controlling. And a lot of times we are King Kongish in our relationships because we feel as if we should have the last say without consulting anybody, and people should just follow us blindly. And so for him, and if you look at the way he even dealt with his partner, is the people within his team, he was the one that they came to. He was the leader, and he fed off that. Even within the neighborhood that he kept his child in, they all feared him, and he fed off that. And so one thing you have to do is you have to make sure that when you are that King Kong, you have to humble yourself. You have to bring yourself down a peg. You have to make sure that you have to realize you didn't. A lot of times we feel we got to where we are by ourselves without acknowledging the people around us who helped us out. And so one thing we have to do is, again, not King Kong our relationships. Step back, consult, because just because we consult doesn't mean we're weaker. It means we're more knowledgeable. I don't know any, taking it to a when you think about your business, when you think about the people within your workspace, a CEO doesn't make all the decisions without consulting the staff. You see what I'm saying? Because there are certain things that the staff knows that he doesn't. And so he does consult to them. He does make this final decision, yes, but he consults with staff that he put in place around him who are pertinent to the next decision he's going to make. And so one thing we have to understand is we are the CEOs of our household. And when we take in someone, or when we decide to become part of that relationship with our wives, with our girlfriends, and something that a decision that we make is going to affect them, whether directly or indirectly, we should still seek some counsel. Every wise king has a councilman, right? And so when we put someone around us, we have to feel that that's going to be our counsel and be able to take words from them and at least consider them in our next steps.
I like how you said that, because even in the movie King Richard, there were often times that he wasn't King Richard. He was King Kong in how he made decisions. So I definitely, listen, I 100% agree with you. At the end of the day, if you are operating any type of business and you want to be successful, whether it be your home business or your business where you get paid, you have to have people around you that are going to, at some point, give you some constructive criticism or just information, whether because they're the ones dealing with the immediate people on the ground, for lack of a better term, while you may be dealing with the paperwork. So it's always important to be a King Kong that can listen. The issue is oftentimes King Kong isn't hearing until it is where he is unfortunately brought down. If you were to humble yourself, then the King Kong mindset would make you King Kong, if that makes sense what I'm saying. Because King Kong is about being domineering, being just the sight of him, which is why Denzel's character was the physical King Kong, in that when you saw him, he had fear. People had fear. That is never, in my opinion, the best way to live your life, because there will be someone that will decide that they don't want to be ruled by King Kong any longer. Mm-hmm. And they'll take whatever steps that take. So it makes you more vulnerable to outside attempts on you, your family, your life, whatever it may be, where when you are King Richard, from the perspective of being open and listening and hearing and wanting to take care of your family, you're less likely to have those immediate attacks on you. And it may be just on you because you're King Kong, but because you have children, it impacts them. And that's the big part that we oftentimes ignore, is that when we make certain choices as King Kong, it has the ability to impact our family tremendously, especially our children, because they may see our behavior and want to repeat that or imitate that, and in turn leads them to some negative repercussions, whether it be in school or in their social life amongst their friends in the neighborhood or whatever it may be, because they see us being King Kong, so they want to be King Kong. So, and a lot of times we have to learn, and I'm sure everyone knows that, as much as we tell our children to don't do what we do as we say, they 9 out of 10 times they do what they see us do. No matter how much you tell them, don't put your hand on the stove, they seen that pretty color flame when it was gas back in the day anyway, and they put their hand on the stove because they see you do it all the time. So I think that's the big part of understanding the King Kong in us, so that we don't oftentimes destroy those around us, even when we're not intending to.
what are some skills that you guys have learned to use to control or to manage yourself both as the King Richard and as the King Kong? If you have been able to do that, what are some of those strategy skills, resources that you're able to use and been able to do? And I think that's important because a lot of times we can talk about all the things we want to talk about in the world, but it's completely different to kind of give people some ideas of how they can actually do it and which ways you can do. So, fathers, if you have some, let's see how do we manage, how do we control, how do we initiate our King Richard or our King Kong?
Well, that's the thing about being a king. Every decision is a warfare decision, right? Because you're the king. So everything and every decision you make is going to pertain to whatever kingdom that you're trying to either protect or flourish. With that, how I think my dad said it best when he told me, son, pick your battles. And he said, and that's one thing I always remembered because I remember driving in the pickup truck with him. And I was always asleep. The minute he drive, I fall asleep because I only want to hear all that. So he try to fall asleep. But he would still have those conversations with me, even though I was asleep or even pretending to be asleep, which is a very clever thing because I never knew until I got older that you had a subconscious. And so when he might have told me to pick my battles, he may have told me that subconsciously in my sleep, but whatever it is and however he told me, it took. And so I remember that at one of the biggest moments in my life, which is when I was on that show. But that particular advice resonated with me on so many levels because I still use that particular advice to govern myself today of picking my own battles. And so picking my battles, again, when it comes to warfare, and people are like, well, you don't have to see everything as a war. I'm like, no, I see everything as a war. That's my choice. You understand? Because everything I do affects not only me, but the people around me. And not only that, I'm not particularly as a man, as a Black man, you understand? We are, if I asked you, do you think we have won the battle? Or if I ask you as a Black man, do you think we have won the war? Then you can tell me, then you'll be in a better place to tell me how to negotiate my warfare or my outlook on warfare. And so I think information most times is warfare. And so picking my battles tells me, okay, how I'm going to address this situation. And most of the time, it's not so much with the intelligence. I don't judge the intelligence because you can be intelligent or ignorant. I judge the intent of which you distribute the intelligence. And so if you distribute it with a certain level of intent, you understand? To me, okay, that's a warfare for me to say, okay, if I'm going to correct you, I'm going to correct you with the same type of intentions you brought it out with. You understand? Because most of the time, and this is unfortunate, I'm like, but sometimes you can't give people insight until you incite them, which is what they call those homonyms. They sound alike. You can't give people insight until you incite them, which means you almost have to rattle them to get their attention, to make them actually, the information to sink into them. You understand? And they may not like it at that particular time, but at least it penetrated the cerebellum. I always wanted to say that word, cerebellum. In order to really get their attention so they can actually think about what it is that they really engage in. And I don't believe in wasting words, number one, and I don't believe in wasting nobody else's word who's trying to give me or convey some information to me. And so me, personally, I don't just view engagement as just simple engagement and like, oh, don't worry about it. That's not my outlook as a man. That's just me though.
So I'm just
With
right.
me,
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to add a little to that. Two things. One, no problem is great, right? Every problem that you have is just an obstacle. So let me give an analogy. I'll use King Kong. So when King Kong at the end of the movie, he was up on top of the tower, right? So he had these planes now circling around him. Now they were compared to his size, compared to the problem that he had, which was the planes, They were like little, flying gnats around him where he kept swatting. The problems that he had is that he wanted to take them all out, right? It goes to what Lightborn was saying, pick and choose your battles. Another thing is sometimes those little insignificant things don't need your importance. Where you are is more important than those issues that you're having. Where he was more important. He's at the top of a building. That with the fall that he had, that took him out. So sometimes you got to look at where you are, judge what the issues are, and start to overcome them rationally and think and logically before you try to attack them all. Attack the one that's most important, right? Second thing I learned myself, it's more important to be heard than to be right. Now I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. Sometimes you're in a debate which turns to an argument because you want to prove your point and show the person how wrong they are. Sometimes you just have to let the other person speak so you can get your point across, because later on it'll sink into them your point of view, right? Because oftentimes people just don't understand where we're coming from with what we're saying. It doesn't make us right or wrong. It doesn't make them right or wrong. It just has two different schools of thought. And so sometimes instead of arguing how right you are, get your point across so that they can understand or get a different perspective on the same topic.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking, okay, maybe you meant to say it's better to be right than to be heard, but I get what you are saying now.
Yeah.
That even in you being, for lack of a better term, maybe not right in that situation, at least you're giving them a different perspective to look at by being heard in that situation versus just letting them say their point and walking away. Because a lot of times when we don't say anything, the person believes their way is the only way and the right way and don't look at other people's perspective. So I get where you were coming from there. Exactly. I was like, what do you mean better to be heard than to be right? So thank you for that enlightenment there. Ron's question was about what are some tactics we use to help minimize King Kong and allow King Richard to be more present? I think time and situation allows that, Ron. I think as far as men, when you have children, and you are of the right mindset, and that's why I was talking about being your age and having the right people around you, you change. If you are when you are a man's man and you have a child, you change because you understand it's no longer about you. You understand that this little person is now dependent on you, and how they live, how they breathe, how they are safe is all on you. So when you become that father and you have that changed mindset, it allows you to change from King Kong to King Richard, because you now understand that it's not just about you. As you even said, Ron, when King Kong was protecting the lady, his mindset, even how he grabbed her, how he held her, was completely different when he was just swatting at planes and doing it for him. He was real aggressive fight, but when he had to protect her, he would always find an easier way to do it to make sure she wasn't injured in the battle. So I think that's where we as men, once we become fathers and truly understand what that means, we change. And that's the difference between, like I said, when you are older or just have guidance versus a young father who may not fully understand what it means, what his role truly means, because he still doesn't understand who he is as a man. So it's hard for him to understand what it means to be a father when he doesn't know what it means to be a man yet. And I think that's the difference in how I'm able to, and what are the tactics I use, because once my kids were in the world, I was no longer just doing things because I wanted to do them. I thought about how what I did could impact them. And it changed me a whole lot from that perspective. And a lot of who my dad was oftentimes King Kong. And I didn't want to be King Kong all the time because he wasn't necessarily the best King Kong or the best guide, for lack of a term. He showed me a lot, like I tell people all the time, and I tell him all the time, he showed me a lot what not to do, not necessarily always what to do. So I've learned as well, looking at other people and their behavior, how King Kong, doesn't necessarily help. So it had helped me from changing in that perspective. So I don't know if that helped anybody, but I think just grasping a better direction in reference to what it is you're trying to protect in that moment, as Gene Roberts said and Lionel said, what is the battle that you're fighting in that moment? And it helps you to better understand whether or not being King Kong is the right step, or whether King Richard is the right step.
And so I just put in and so maybe people were, for audiences out there who were on the live chat, and I'm going to ask you guys to and I'm going to, let you fill in. The question I asked was, are you King Richard? Are you King Kong? Are you both? And so I'll let you guys kind of answer that out loud. Because I know you right live on the show, you can't really get to the poll that I put in the chat, but and then also let's discuss why are you King Kong or King Richard, or why are you both?
I know for me, I think it would be both at least, and I think it comes with maturity and with age, and what I mean by that is that as men, you really develop your power of discernment. Discernment is extremely important. And to me, discernment is just the ability to read the room. You got as we grow, we say, because we'll come in with a certain attitude when we're young, and I'm going to prove my point, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to make somebody do this, and you learn as you mature that it's not always the best thing to win. It's not always, I found that with my wife. You can win, but you're gonna pay a price. you go pay later. So but it's just the ability to be able to read the room, see certain situations, and to know whether you should be a King Richard or you should be a King Kong. And we do that many times with our kids. Sometimes you're gonna say no, you can't. You just can't do that. And you have to be a King Kong and stand your ground. But there are other times that, depending on the situation, you can say, well, listen, let's talk about it. And other times you can say, well, listen, you have your way. So it's going to depend on this discernment, and that comes with age and maturity.
Good point. I 100% agree with that. Because
your answer is you agree with it, but what's your answer?
I'm both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But technically, if you look at King Richard from the movie, he was both. He was, even though he was, we're making a clear distinction. The character and the person of King Richard was both King Kong and King Richard, in how he managed, as Lauren just said, the room, depending on how people came at him, how they came at his children, how they talked to him. He would be the nice, elegant, hey, what's going on? Fun-loving guy, laughing up with them. But if they came at him trying to be disrespectful of him and or disregard his girls, he turned into King Kong in that moment. So even in the movie of King Richard, I think every man should be both, should be. Because some men, unfortunately, haven't been brought up in that mindset. And again, it plays a role in who is part of your upbringing that will help you to understand the difference, or that there is both of them in you. Because some men only believe that there's King Kong, and others only act like what the other Richard name? Not King Richard, but he used to be a singer. Something
Little Richard.
Little Richard. My bad, y'all. It'll be Little Richard.
Hey, so I this man is one crack joke. But listen, Johnny, you bring a good point. And almost to say that it's still never too late to really find out how to manage and find out how you can do these things. This is the reason why we even have a group like this. You can come and manage it. You can find out from other men and other fathers your own way. Because a lot of times people don't think their way is right because the message is sent to them it's maybe not be from the people who have to do what they doing. It's easy for somebody, listen, I love to use this sports analogy. Everybody is an expert at the sport until they have to throw the ball, hit the ball, catch the ball, tackle the person, run the base. You're the listen, you say, if I was out there, but you wasn't out there. Because if you was out there, it might have been worse. You can't say what you can and cannot do until you in that actual position. You know, like the boxer this say he was gonna beat Tank Johnson. He was gonna beat Tank this weekend. He was gonna beat him. He said he beat him all 6 rounds, but then you got knocked out. So he ain't beat nobody. Can't beat nobody if you got knocked out, brother. You ain't won, you wasn't winning any fight knocked out. So
He beat the Sandman. He was winning the fight. He just stepped in the wrong time.
well, he ain't win nothing. Listen, he got knocked out. You can win all you want to win. The win was you got knocked out.
That is true.
So you know who I often think about is LaMelo Ball, the Ball brothers and their father.
Yeah.
Man, because people hated him for the way he talked about his kids. He was very confident in his kids, just like King Richard. My boy's gonna do this, and this they going to the NBA, and they gonna do it. They said, "Man, you crazy. You don't know what's going on." But he was being King Kong. You know, he's like, "No, this is what's gonna happen. This is what's gonna happen." And now, when it came to fruition, everybody said, "Yeah, you're right." Well, you know, it happened.
Good point. Good point.
That you know, not hey, Lawrence, that's probably one of the best examples when we think of the late, you know, thinking of the two, you know, thinking of fatherhood in a way that we haven't seen it. Because I remember people even speaking about him in a way that he was bad for his sons.
Yeah.
I said to myself, how is a father who believes in them, who provides for them, how is he like almost like we need to call DHS on them type of business? I was thinking to myself, this man was saying his kids are going to be great. They're all going to be not only they're going to be all be millionaires, we're going to be a billionaire family.
Correct.
And how is that? You know, and I think back about the idea of Joe Jackson.
Gotcha.
Joe Jackson was a horrible father. He was abusive. But clearly, at some point, I can't tell because they all living pretty, you know, they living pretty fabulous. I ain't seen Jackson say, "Oh, you know what? I'm homeless."
Yeah.
I ain't got no, you know, they dad contributed to, and because of, you know, a little bit about him, he was the main contributor of that push and that train going. He was the conductor. The mom was the caboose for the kids, but he was the conductor. He was the engine for the Jackson Empire. And you hear people all the time talk about how horrible and how abusive and how hard he was. And I say, well, can my dad get hard like that? If that's the result, can my dad get hard like that? Because I'll take some of that. You know?
Well, and that's the thing there, Ron, that I say, I think a lot of people would prefer to just have dad present and involved to that level than not at all.
Right.
It makes a difference when you have a father that's as involved as he was. Joe Jackson wanted his kids away from the Klan. As much as he wanted, those are the notes. As much, I think all of those fathers that we talked about, from Joe Jackson to Lamar Ball to King Richard, when you look at them, they were very aggressive, they were very hard, but they came from different time than we did. Again, their experience generationally, again, came from a time where you had to be that way because it was a way of helping you to protect your children from the outside world. So you had to teach them about what it means to be hard, because otherwise the world could take them over, because that was the experience that these men had. So unfortunately, yes, was it the most loving father-children relationship you saw when you talk about those three men? And I don't know Mr. Ball's situation, but when you think about Richard and you think about Joe Jackson, No, it might not have been the most loving from what the world says a parent should love their child. But when it comes to the aspect of making sure he pushed them and protected them from what the world said they were supposed to be, and that's why when we think about parents that discipline their child, and the world tells us, no, we're not supposed to discipline them. We're not supposed to spank them. And then those same children, because they have not been disciplined, and I use that word versus spanking, back in the day, they hit us with some stuff that would straight up be abuse to them. And we were like, Lord, what is going on, mama? So when you think about that, the discipline was necessary to push them to where they needed to go. And I think those fathers played a role in the way that they did to make sure their children were successful, despite what the world says from the outside looking in.
Well, I mean, again, it's very easy for people to make that, to make those comments, but you have to remember what these fathers have seen.
Correct.
And what they know their children would have to. This is why fathering is so important, because a lot of times fathers will see things that their children will have to face, and their job is to protect them. Listen, we talk about protecting and providing, right? This is what fathers know, that there's certain things out there that's going to be a danger to them, and they don't want them to have to go through. And to protect them is like a perfect example. Joe Jackson knew how hard, and see in the chat how hard it was in Indiana for what could happen to his kids and what their future would be like. They would have to work as hard as him. So he pushed as any reasonable father would.
I don't think Joe Jackson owed nobody a damn thing when it comes to an explanation. First of all, I'm like, that man successfully raised his kids. I'm like, you should be asking him how he did it as opposed to criticizing why he did it. That's number one. Number two, the only problem with a black man raising his child, and the only problem LeVar Ball, the only problem King Richard have, and even Muhammad Ali had, is this one thing. It's telling your kids publicly they can be great. That's a problem to the system. You understand? Because the system only designed for you to be good. You understand? And so when especially a black father, because that's where vision come from, through that man. You understand? Yeah. I mean, the woman can be the incubator, but that man is the seed. And so whatever he says is going to be planted and more likely to take root. And so if that is true, and you telling these Negroes, girl or boy, they can be great. No. We're all right with you guys being good, but greatness is for our children. You understand? So yes, there's something systemically wrong with that. And I don't care about the stigma. I'm like, you better tell your kids they're going to be great and don't accept nothing less, because the alternative to Joe Jackson's situation was either he can spank them, but nobody's complaining about the system starving them. And that's the alternative, because they were starving, but nobody's bringing that up. Yeah. 9 kids in the house. And he was like, I'm like, listen, and they so far away from the age of 18 and working age, if he didn't do something at that particular point that he knew his kids well enough that they can do and conquer hunger. See, we're not talking about that, but that's why we have this particular platform to change that narrative.
You hear that? Amen.
Joe Jackson,
it's on the way you look at it.
Joe Jackson would have got praised here. He would have got pushed up. You know, you put him up after they win the game. We'd have been pushing him in the air. Go, Joe! Go, Joe! Joe, you did it, brother. Yeah.
Go ahead, G.
No, I was just saying. I agree. I agree. It's on the way you look at it, because the alternative is worse than the outcome. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, that's what they were facing. They were facing the neighborhoods that they grew up in, what they saw around them. My child has to get out of here. There's no if, no ands, or buts. And they're going to get out of here by any means necessary. And if I have to be that stern to guide them, because that's what it is, as a parent, a lot of times, and whether, you're fighting not only their stubbornness, which is your kids, but you're fighting the outside influence. Yeah. And you're going to do it by, in the sense of, the 3 fathers that we're talking about, they did it the way they knew how. Correct. And it worked. So we can't, in the end, you can come, people are going to be like, well, look how they turned out, with the issues that they have. But again, you can't fault the father for doing it the way he knew how, because he parented like he was parented. And that's what it all boils down to. And the success, you can't deny the success that the kids are having, and that the kids are, and how, and when you look at it, he put in place, not for himself, but generational wealth for his kids and their kids.
Right.
He may not have had the money for himself, but he made sure his kids had the money for generations to come. And that's what we're looking at. And that's the thing. And like Lightborn said, you know, be damned because of the natural talent. And, you know, I may get some flack for this, but the natural talent that many Black people have when they touch something, that's where the anger and aggression comes from other people. Because sometimes the talent is there where you don't have to work as hard for it as someone else. And you excel further than they ever will. And that's where the anger and resentment comes from, is the inability to achieve what you achieve with as little as you had.
Absolutely. Why you don't gotta apologize for that, Gene? Why would you apologize for the truth? Truth and right can never have to be apologized for. Just like this idea of ball. Let me tell you something. I remember I had such an issue with people, even the sports commentators, them dudes at First Take, the dudes over there at Undisputed. They had so many issues with LeVar Ball. They had so many issues. But you know what I took from what he did was more than anything? He gave his sons accountability and responsibility because he said it. And once he said it, it left them to have to do it.
Do it.
You understand? He said that they was going to be great. He said that they always going to be in the league together. He said, and so now they can't say, I don't want to do it. I have a mindset that it can't be done. They got to make it happen because their daddy, the person they look up to more than anybody, the superhero, the person they believe in, said it. So they got to do it. Floyd Daddy told him that he'll be a champion. Guess what he had to do? He had to do it.
But you just said something that's very important, Ron. You know what they call it? Let's speak systemically, because I have my systemic vernacular. So let's just speak systemically. He gave them what they call buy-in, but before you can give anybody buy-in, they have to be equal. You understand? And he saw them as equal investors of their family and believed them to be equal investors of their family, to send them out with a task that they will accomplish. Now, when you get a father like that, and you got a father like Serena Williams and dad like King Richard, and so and like Joe Jackson, you know what they call them in the days, and I love this because we're gonna go scientifically, or better yet, sociological right now. You know what they call that today? You know what they call them three men? They're called evidence-based models. You understand? And the problem with that is we missed the opportunity to explain our evidence-based models that's irrefutable. You understand? I'm like, that's non-negotiable because you can't make what they did failures right now. But at the end of the day, we still allow these people to entertain successes or successful people, and particularly successful Black people, as with failure conversations when they don't even have the footing. I'm like, no, you're about to either drown yourself or hang yourself right now because you have no type of credentials or anything to really put yourself up against what they did and their historical successes given their circumstances. But the problem is we entertain garbage too much. And simply because the garbage comes from a particular tier or particular hue.
Yeah, I hear that.
I'm gonna throw one more father up in there. Tiger Woods.
I was just about to say that.
That's another evidence-based model, like Lightborn was saying. He put a golf club in his child's hand and said, "You're gonna be great." And look where he became.
And he was constantly present.
Yes.
That's what all four of these men were. Constantly.
Y'all want to talk about men who was, listen, let me tell y'all something. And now y'all gonna get me on the road. Let's take one. He considered, to me, he's considered one of the most successful athletes of all time. Well, two of them. Okay, two of them.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, you know I'm gonna say.
Yeah, I was
but
thinking
we
about
never
his
hear. Listen,
Phil Harris.
between Shaquille O'Neal and Michael Jordan, right? We don't ever hear sometimes what their dads did. But Shaquille O'Neal, and this was the big point. Shaquille O'Neal's stepdad was the one who raised him.
Correct.
And pushed him to be what he was and how he was. Shaquille O'Neal talk about it all the time.
All the time.
So we understand that it don't just got to be your children you can do that for, your biological, but it can be your children.
Correct.
Because I don't believe in anything else. Either they biological or they your children.
No, period.
I don't know what stepchildren is. They're your children.
Yeah.
Children are your children. And you've seen this happen. And look what Shaquille O'Neal is today because of that. He probably one of the most decorated. When we look at athletes who have everything, he got all the degrees. He got degrees.
Yeah.
He got a career. He had got a career, and he's still making money like he in the league today. He got commercials that you can watch right now. This man been out the league how long? But again, that comes from and this take nothing away from what his mom gave him, but I know that his father gave him expectation.
That's the word.
All boys want to live up to that kind of expectation of a father.
That word right there, Ron. Expectation.
I wanted to just comment just recently, and I want to kind of switch up just a little bit, but when we talk about, I call it the final frontier, and we talked about Shaquille O'Neal, and Shaquille O'Neal is great, Michael Jordan is great, but then you hear them talking about their career. What you don't hear them talking about, they make more money now than they ever made entertaining people. Okay, now that you're not going to hear because that's the final frontier. Whenever you can have a basketball team or a football team or a baseball team. You have finite numbers. There's only so many members on a team. There's only so many people that can get rich. But guess what? If we start having King Richards and King Kongs that start companies, that start enterprises, that's why you don't hear about the Reggie Lewises of the world who had $1 billion empire that bought Beatrice Foods and got by mistake, and they had to kill him. But that's another story. You don't hear about Bob Smith, who paid for kids to go to school. All y'all can go to college for free because I can afford it. Yeah. Once you start that strikes hard into the fear of people. Fear in their heart because there's no limit on the number of that. You can't limit that to how many people on a team. Everybody can do that. Everybody. And that frightens people a lot. So we need to have more of those King Riches and those King Kongs.
And that's
Big Larry. Excuse me 1 second, please. Yeah. To your point, you're right about what you said, but I pay attention to a lot of different interviews. Shaq did reveal that he makes more money after his career, and he can say it. He actually did it in a podcast, and I'm just going to put the podcast up there, The Pivot. But he recently did a podcast about a week or two ago with The Pivot, and he said that he owns so many businesses that he doesn't know the name of all of them. And he has people in charge of making sure that they take care of these businesses at this time, and he's waiting to get 70 years old to hand it off one of his children. So I love that point you made, and you're correct about everything that you said.
But then we have to look at the point of references because they have playbooks. I remember this, and this is not a well-kept secret, but it shouldn't have been a secret at all. And I think we need to share it as we hear it. Share it as we hear it. And I remember Tom Joyner saying that he used Oprah Winfrey's playbook. She literally shared her model with Tom Joyner, and then Tom Joyner became successful. And so I can only see Shaquille O'Neal using Magic Johnson's playbook. You understand? And so we can identify the playbook. I think we need to be more intentional and how to sharing our playbooks and our strategies with who's ready to hear it. And guess what? Who may not want to learn from me, may want to learn from somebody after me. And again, we don't have to get along to get ahead. This is one thing I know that our ancestors knew and that's made us successful today. Well, made them successful yesterday and can make us successful today, which is, again, we don't have to get along to get ahead. And with that, I need to know that you have something or a particular purpose that you were born for. I need from you, even though I don't like you. That's the difference. And once you can establish yourself as that particular person with that particular purpose, then guess what? You'll be willing to share your purpose as well as glean and learn from the purpose of other people that you need.
Hey, Lana. What, say that part again. I mean, you say we don't need what we don't need.
We don't need to get along to get ahead.
Say it again. Say that part again, because this is important, man. Say it again, man. Say it again, one more time.
And we don't need to get along to get
We
ahead.
don't. And this is one of the biggest problems that we continue to have in our community. I think the idea that we gotta think the same, all the stuff gotta be identical for us to get ahead. How about everybody just take their front and go with it and bring back to the pot, though?
I hear that.
And we don't gotta agree on how to bring it, but we all can agree. We all agree is a pot. We all agree. Listen, I don't care what anybody say. They argue. I believe it. I believe. When we get back to it, they all believe in the pot. So go and do your thing and bring it back to that pot, man.
Yeah.
And that's one of my biggest frustrations today, especially for us as fathers, as men, because I feel like there's a war out there between our men and our women. It being manipulated, a war being manipulated against us, that because we believe different, that we can't move ahead. We supposed to think different. Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. It's okay, but guess what? We still in the same universe.
Hear that.
It also plays to the fact of you got to be willing to be open. Sometimes we look at someone being successful, and rather than saying, "How did you do it?" we say, "Look at him. Look at him showing off." Sometimes you got to humble yourself and say, "Yo, how did you do it? Show me what you did. Give me the playbook so I can replicate it for me and other people. And then I can share it with those other people in my surroundings." And then another thing is we have to be willing to support each other. One thing that I always hear, and I guess it spreads to all communities, not just the African-American, Black community, island community, is don't depend on your friends to support you. Depend on everybody else. Your friends and family will not support you as fast as a stranger will. It should be reversed.
Right.
It should be my friends and family that can support me faster than I would a stranger. But it holds true. You see what I'm saying? So until you change that mind frame, one, start supporting the person who's trying to make something better, and maybe they can reach back and help you. Humble yourself to ask them how they did it so you can be successful also. But stop having to worry about strangers and give your support as a family or friend to someone else.
It's so funny you said that, man, because I started thinking, well, why? That is so true. Why is that psychologically that we are more apt to get help from a stranger or support from a stranger for whatever business that we may be doing than we would from a family? And I sit down and think about, okay, the family's still focused on who you were. They're not
Focus on who you want to become.
Yeah, or trying to become. They still focus on that dude.
That's exactly right.
I remember when. I see him trying now. I see what he's doing now. I see him trying to be better now. Oh no, I just still focus on who that dude was. So that's the sad part, unfortunately, when it comes to family and how they focus on you. And then they wait till you do become successful without them, and everybody want to come sing and try to figure out how they can get part of the pot now. I just think that
but you know what, Gaspar? They don't ask how you did it so they can do it. They ask, how can I get some of what you got?
Yeah.
They don't want to do the work.
They want to bring balance to this, because I don't want people thinking like this is just a cultural thing. I'm like, no.
No.
I said it's across the board.
Yeah, it's across the board. Because remember, they had they said familiarity breeds contempt.
Uh-huh.
And so that is true. And they even got it in the business model that you shouldn't hire family.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
Right. So if that is so, like, right, you can be a disability to hire family. So, I mean, it would probably be the wisdom to not even worry about it.
Say, my wife always disagrees with me, but I mean, for 30 years, I've always said, I never do business with friends or family, ever. They say, well, why you don't do that? I said, number one, you don't want to, if you mess up, you can mess up a relationship.
True, true.
Okay. And number two, they tell me if I do mess up, I say, well, it didn't cost you nothing, no way. So what you worried about? So, but I do tell family this. I said, listen, I don't want your business. I want your referrals. Refer your people to me.
Exactly.
They're more apt
Exactly.
to refer their people to you than to come to you themselves.
Exactly.
So
Yes,
that's what I try to
Matter
do.
of fact, give them an incentive. For every 10 referral you get, I got you. Keep it 100. You gonna get me to come do it for free. How about just give me the 10 referrals? 10 referrals, I can do yours for free. I ain't asking you to do nothing, but give me 10 people that you know who say they got a problem. And I got yours for free. That you support me and you know how it go down. So listen, guys, it's been a really, really good. Hey man, we had a really good conversation tonight. It seemed like we was gonna be banging the place up, but we all end up banging it into the right places with some real important factors and some important issues that fathers should be thinking about right now, and how to really be able to lead and structure their families, that family, who it includes and how it includes. I want to open up. Does anybody want to say any final thing before we get up out of here? Any want to make any announcements or anything? Leave that open to people. And if not, we're going to go ahead and do our chant and get up out of here for the night, right on time. Because I know Johnny got me on the clock. Johnny, you know, the lawyer gonna have you on the clock. He got you like, he gonna come right at the 7, and he got to go right at the 7:30 because you know they get paid by the hour.
You're paid by the hour.
We done 3 minutes past that time. Let's roll.
If there's nothing else, gentlemen, repeat after me. I am. I say I am.
I am.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of honor.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of courage.
I am a man of courage.
I am.
I am.
I am a man of respect.
I am a man of respect.
I said that I am.
I am.
I said that you are.
You are.
I say that we are.
We are.
Championship fathers.
Fathers.
Yes,
And
sir.
remember, folks, we not being a macho man, Randy Savage. I know I got my hot rod shirt on today for Ronnie Piper. We're not doing that. What we're doing is we're holding our children on our arms.
Yes, sir.
As any father should do. And so, again, want to thank everybody for joining us. If you're interested fathers, mothers, if you know a father, you definitely just look into the chat and you can join us tomorrow for our fathers only meeting on our Zoom platform. We're welcome you to come. We're gonna have some more interpersonal kind of conversation. This is the public conversation, but we have a little bit more interpersonal conversation on the private Zoom. So welcome fathers to come and join us on that tomorrow. And we'll see you all here again back next week.